Hey y'all, hey. So I'm just gonna do a quick video on conviction versus manipulation. I just had this thought a couple weeks ago that sometimes we have to be very careful about making sure what we feel convicted about is not manipulation. But with that being said, I have to say a caveat to that is sometimes if you're unfamiliar with the convicting of the Holy Spirit or feeling that whole level of discernment in the beginning, it could feel like manipulation. Like, I know there has been pastors and things of the past that uses people's personal life to do their sermon, and then sometimes you're in a sermon and the person don't know you at all and it feels like they're speaking directly towards you. A lot of times that is conviction. And sometimes even if they do know you, it may not necessarily be that they're trying to call you out. You'll know the difference. But we also have to be careful of manipulation. People that are intending to manipulate and control people or influence people, they know what pushes people's buttons. And so if you're green and you're not familiar with the Holy Spirit enough, you'll think, this message is really speaking to me. I feel convicted. I feel like they're talking directly to you. This has to be God. It's not always the case. And I feel like because people aren't reading the word for themselves and actually spending time with God, these days people are easier deceived by false prophets and false teachers. It's not too far-fetched to be like, if you ever had a headache in here, God is calling you to give $1,000. Now that is an extreme case, an example, but I'm painting that picture for because almost everybody in their life, maybe a few people have it, has had a headache. And so we're going to hit on a highlighted point, a broad spectrum stroke, and say, if you ever had a headache, God is calling you today to do X, Y, and Z. Or maybe God is calling you to change your life. Or this whole thing where people are trying to touch your emotion. I know times are hard and people are trying to take you down. We all at some point in our life have felt like or actually had people trying to take us down. So they're just throwing out darts, and knowing that these are things that are the common human experience, they're going to land on a few people. And they don't even care how many. They just need people to fall out so that other people could be influenced by it, and et cetera, et cetera. You may ask at this point, well, how do we know the difference? Like, how do we know when we're truly being convicted and when we're being manipulated? Because people that are not ready to change will get convictions from people, direct words, and they'll feel like, oh, you're just trying to project your conviction on me. You're just trying to control me. You're just trying to manipulate me. God said that to you, didn't say that to me. So there's many parts to this, because sometimes we're just not ready to give things up. God told me to stop eating candy every day, and I don't want to. So when somebody, Sally Sue, or the message is don't eat sugar like that anymore because it's ruining your body, he's not convicting me. He know I eat too much sugar, so he's trying to convict me. Or it may apply to them, but doesn't apply to me. And God talking directly to you. So number one way to discern is to have the Holy Spirit. You have to have the Holy Spirit to help you discern whether this is a convicting message for you, or you're just moved by emotions, or this person's just trying to manipulate. The Holy Spirit will reveal. And you don't have to be that spiritual. You don't have to be some old saint. You don't have to be anything but somebody that's willing to humble themselves and ask God, do I have an attitude? Am I ignoring this? It's one of the two. Or am I being manipulated? Go to the Father. So if you're not used to hearing from God or hearing from the Holy Spirit, pray to him. The word lets you know that the Father blesses those he loves, and he loves us all. The God will give you questions. If you ask him, he won't turn his face away from you. So God, I feel like this may be for me. Is it for me? I can't explain how I discern, but I've been discerning before I knew what discernment was. But I know there's been moments where I've been caught up in the emotion, like, oh, this had to be for me. And as it continues to go on, it's like something tells me to pay attention. The Holy Spirit tells me to pay attention. Now I'm telling you something, because before I knew it was the Holy Spirit, I would be like, why does that not feel right? Like, I'm thinking this is for me and it's not. I start questioning. And then God confirms why I should question. Or if I low-key been ignoring it, it may take months, it may take years. If it keep coming back to me and then it hits me in the face and I have to ask God, and the Bible verse come up or somebody that I trust says it, again, Holy Spirit will confirm. He will speak to you. God will talk to you. The word is there to tell you what it's not. So don't just be taken away by miracle signs and wonders, and don't be. A lot of these pastors these days, unfortunately, are good orators, they're motivational speakers. They've studied humans and psychology, so they know what to say. I hate in the miracles service when I'm trying to display a miracle, but I call out something that these days everybody's dealing with. And I'm not saying that God is not dealing with it in that moment, but so the Spirit will let you know. I'm going to leave that there, because who am I to judge another man's prophet, another man's servant? But at the same time, I just felt to speak on manipulation versus conviction. Peter tells us we must listen to God over man. So there are times it may be something for a word for somebody, but not a word from you. And that's why you need to be tied into the Holy Spirit and speaking and praying and talking with God daily. Because it may be a season for me to volunteer for the church every single day, be working hard for the church because God called me to that, but it may not be for you, or vice versa. It may be a time for you to give somebody on the street $1,000 versus somebody else to give it to a church. It may be a time for you to be out of work and she's supposed to be in work. All this comes down to your personal walk and what God is calling you to do. And you can't be pushed by somebody trying to manipulate and not teaching you how to be led by the Holy Spirit. And they're not trusting or having faith by the Holy Spirit themselves. So please really understand conviction. I didn't use any Bible verses or anything like that. I might do a part 2 to kind of help with like what conviction feels like, and do some studying myself. There was verses that came to my head for sure. But yeah, be careful with that feeling of conviction. Make sure it's a conviction from God and not manipulation from man. And if you're being convicted, don't ignore God. Obedience is better than sacrifice.